Hello and welcome back to Management Accounting Applications. What we're going to look at today is the answer for mix and yield for sales, presented as always by Dr. Martin Roberts. So all that we're doing here is that we're looking at the proportion of the products sold in relation to the margins generated, and then yield is just purely looking at volume versus volume. So for looking at the question, what we've got staring at us, which again is available via Word, is that what we've got staring at is that we have two products, X and Y, with we would normally sell in proportion of 2 X's and 3 Y's. They have standard profits of £5 and £6, and they have an average profit of £5.60. What we then go on to examine is that they have actual sales, they have budget sales, and then therefore we're asked to calculate the sales volume variance, and then what we've got is quantity as you're thinking of yield, and then finally we'll do mix. Okay, so what we do is that let's start with mix. And so what we're going to do is that we look at the actual volumes of the sales units. So product X, we sold 180 units, product Y 310, and then what we're going to do is that we're going to compare them in relation to the correct proportions that you budget to sell them in. So the original budget was we were going to sell 500 units, and we were going to sell them in the proportion of 200 of X and 300 of Y. So what we do is that we look at our actuals. They stay the same, we don't change them. So we do 180 and 310. But to get the restated budget of 196 and 294, is what you do is you take your total units sold and then you just calculate them by the proportion that X should have been sold in. So X should have been in the proportion of 200 X's to 500 total units. So 200 over 500 times by the 490. That will give you X should have been resold, should have had budget unit sales of 196. If we do the same for Y, we had 490 is the actuals, in proportion to what they should have been sold at 490 times by 300 divided by 500, is that we should really have set our budget for 294. So when we compare one against the other, so the 180 minus the 196, the 310, minus the 294, so there's the 180 actual, there's your restated budget, there's your, for Y, there's your 310 versus your 294. So the way it works is because you've sold less than your budget, we're actually down by 16 units. If we look at the other way around, is that we've got 310 actual, so we've sold more than budget. We've sold 16 units more because our original budget, our restated budget was 294 units. So there you go, is that what you should see is that all you're doing is you're restating your budget at actual volumes, so you shouldn't create an overall variance. That should be your check when you're doing a mix calculation. So because we've restated the budget, and because we've got our actuals, and because comparing one against the other we create a variance, what then we do is we multiply by our standard profit of £5 for X and £6 for Y, is although we have zero variance in units. What we do have is that we have an effect on our profits. And what you can see is that product X is we've reduced the reduced volume has an effect of minus £80, whereas for product Y we made more money, we sold more than the restated budget would have been, and then therefore it's good news. We've made £96 by selling more Ys and selling less X's, so we've made £16. Our mix has been better. That's telling us that the salespeople have done a good job. Although they've sold less, what they've sold less of, they've had a better mix. The original budget was 500, but because they were only able to sell 490, in this particular calculation, this is good news because it generates more money. Now looking at yield though, we've got a problem. We actually sold 490 units. We had a budget of 500. We had a variance. That means we've sold 10 less. So what that now means is that when we multiply by our average standard profit, is that we are down by £56. So what this is saying overall is that we have sold less and that has cost us money, but of what we did sell we made a better margin. So let's put all that together. Okay, our total variance for mix and yield together is, unfortunately, we're £40 down. Okay, and when we look at our overall production sales volume variance, is that when you look at that, is that there is your double check. Our overall sales volume variance is saying to us that we lost £40. Well, how did we do that? We lost £40 because we didn't sell enough volume wise, although we did very well in terms of what we did sell, we made more margin. Now what that could be is that we've stupidly, instead of sticking to the plan, is that we have cost ourselves money by not sticking to the proportions in which we expected to sell in. We could be selling or trying to sell the more expensive product in comparison to the cheaper one, and although we think we're making more money because we lost in volume, although we gained in margin, it should have been volume that we went for. Now let's just go back to the sales volume variance. What I've done here down at the bottom is that each product would have a sales volume variance. Okay, so what you would do is, normally you're only dealing with one product when you go back to your level 4 studies, and so you would just do actual volume versus budget volume, gives you a variance. Obviously it's less than we expected to sell, times by your standard profit, gives you a loss there. Okay, product Y, same thing. We actually sold 310. We were expecting to sell 300, so we've gained in units, times by your standard profit, gives us £60. But there you go, you can see is that what that's saying to you is that really we've not sold enough X's, and we've sold more Y's, but we're still losing money because we didn't sell as many X's as we should have done. So it does look like we've concentrated more on Y than we should have done, and that has cost us overall, and that's backed us up by the mix and the yield calculations. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Any questions, please let me know, and then please also follow the following lecture, which will be on materials, mix and yield.